to our gutters. We're going Moroccan. We're going to make another tagine. Now, I previously made tagine, and it is sort of one of those dishes that I've made quite a lot of in the past, but this one's different because this is a fish tagine. And it's a little bit early yet, hence no beer on the go. Couldn't get away with me run this early. The wife's in the next room. Because we want to marinate our fish for at least an hour. And then we've got some other bits and pieces we can be preparing, and then we'll be cooking everything for about an hour and a half. So you need, obviously, I mean, you can start this the day before and marinate your fish overnight if you want. So the first thing I've got here is I've got a bunch of coriander. And what I want to do is chop this up finely. We aren't going to be shoving it all in the mortar and be grinding it all up along with some spices. And for this stage you're going to want, like I say, some coriander, a few cloves of garlic, a generous piece of fresh ginger, some olive oil, about half a teaspoon of paprika, about a teaspoon of ground coriander, a generous pinch of saffron threads, and about half a teaspoon of ground cumin. Now for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the chopped parsley and coriander together in that bowl. Okay, so a tagine. A tagine is a particular type of cooking pot, usually associated with Morocco, but there is some sort of, you know, suggestion that that might not have been where it originated from. But of course I do like to fill you in with all those lovely details, so as we go along I'll be letting you know a little bit about it. Chuck it on the floor, what should be saying to me? Don't just think clean the other day. Oh, just chuck some more on the floor, trying to pick the bit up that's on the side. Like I say, it's all going to be ground up together anyway, so not too worried about how fine we mince it at this stage. Okay, so that's our herbs done. Just put that over there for a minute. Our next thing is we want to finally chop our ginger and our garlic, and then I'll shove that in a bowl as well. I've got those bits done, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my saffron threads, and I'm just going to lightly grind them and then tip in that paprika, cumin and coriander. Although I think I just did them two around the wrong way. I'm using my little mortar this time simply because that's a bit absorbent, and because the amount of oil I'm going to put in this, it'll be a bit better in here, although I'm not even sure if this is going to be big enough. So just giving them a bit of a sort of grind together, and then I'm going to take my garlic and ginger, and that's going to go in there. Just washing up from earlier, and then we're just going to pound this together until that's all nicely mashed up together. Okay. Obviously, the finer you chop your garlic and your ginger to start with, a little bit easier this is going to be. Okay, but like I say, there you go. Word tagine is a North African word meaning earthenware cooking pot. It's also related to a Greek word, Tagine, which basically means frying pan stroke saucepan. Frying pan stroke in a saucepan. Kinky. So now, unfortunately, traditionally, this dish, not in this bit, contains tomatoes and red and green peppers. I can just about tolerate red and green peppers, like sliced raw, but when you cook them they look like tomatoes, don't they? Can't have that. So we will not be putting tomatoes and red peppers in there. We will going to put some onion, some potato, some celery, carrot, and there will be some more garlic and ginger and a couple of other spices. So I'll keep pounding. So now I'm going to add in that parsley and coriander. He says tipping everywhere. And give that a thorough good pounding together with the rest of it. Like I say, there's not going to be an awful lot of room in here. But obviously it will reduce down a bit once we start getting this mixed together. And then, like I say, the only other ingredient to go into it will be some olive oil, about half a cup. Half a cup? Yeah, half a cup olive oil. Some lemon zest, and then some lemon juice, and a generous pinch of salt, and then that will be the marinade ready. Now you're going to want a bowl to put obviously your fish in with the marinade. So we're now just going to add the zest, 1 lemon, now the spices I've added are traditional, okay. Grind that bit, put down on there. This is a fresh lemon. Some of the others I've got out there are not so fresh, and they're a bit rubbery, so they're a bit awkward to do. So I'll tell you about the tagine. In the 1990s, excavations up in Scotland at the Antonine Wall, which I can't remember who built it, but it was Romans. Fragments of pottery were found, some of which did appear to resemble what is possibly forerunners of a tagine. So that would suggest that the Romans, not necessarily they invented it, they probably picked it up from Morocco or wherever. And like I say, we also want the juice of half of that lemon. You don't want the seeds in now. So the Romans obviously almost certainly were making tagines. Others say that it dates back to very early Arabic times, and in fact in the Arabian Nights, the story, you know, the Arabian Nights, there is a mention of cooking with tagine. That one's dirty. That's my clean one. So, and that's back in the 5th century. So this thing has been around. There's me generous pinches of salt. My fingers are still wet. Got salt all over them now. So that's another possibility that, you know, they date back even as far as then. So I'm just going to give that a final mix, and then we'll get the olive oil in there, and then we'll get on with the fish. Now I'm going to tip in there about half a cup of olive oil. And aside from a little bit more oil, just to sort of wet the bottom of the tagine, as it were, we won't be putting any more oil in. This is obviously just so we've got something to sort of help marinate the fish in. So you're not going to use all of this with the fish. Alright, so I'm just going to transfer this to a bowl. And we will be adding some of this when we start building the layers up in the tagine oven. Now, if you haven't got a tagine, that's fine. There's a pepper on there, we don't want a pepper on there, do we? That's fine, you can do it in a Dutch oven. Okay, so this is the cod, it doesn't have to be cod. It can be any sort of firm fleshed fish. We're going to cut them into generous size pieces. Yeah. Just checking she bought skinless one. Could be colour too. So we're going to cut the fish up into reasonable sized chunks, like I say, and then we're going to put some of it into there, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of this on top before I put the remaining fish on there. Now we are going to get our hands in there and we are going to be mixing this all up, but it's just to give it a bit of head start really. So in that goes, and then like I say, we do not want, I'm trying to get that without any fish, we don't want to use all of that up, so I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'm just going to massage that into the fish to make sure all the bits are thoroughly coated, and then just going to cover this over, and we're going to then just let it soak up them spices and all them flavours. Try not to waste any on your hands. And then that's it. So we're going to put, hopefully, like I say, you're going to give it at least an hour. Overnight's excellent, okay? And then when we're getting nearer the time to make the tagine up, we're going to prepare our vegetables and everything else. So, a bit of a break time now. Oh, it's almost 6 o'clock. It's now a bit later, and therefore it's time to start preparing our main tagine. So, like I said to you, you're going to want some garlic and ginger, and we're going to do the same as we did before for the marinade with the garlic and ginger. We're going to chop them up finely and put them in a bowl ready for adding into the next stage. Now we finished with our mortar and pestle, we're not going to be pounding this anymore, but this is going to act as a bit of a marinade for the potatoes. I said to you there's potatoes going in this. Now I'm not peeling the potatoes just yet because obviously they start going brown. Okay. I've also got 2 onions here, partly because, like I said, I'm not using vomiting tomatoes and peppers. Because apart from that little bit of oil that's in the marinade and everything, the liquid part all comes from the ingredients you're putting in. You don't add water. And the tagine appears to have been designed for that very reason. So particularly in areas where there's shortage of water, the chimney, if you like, the top of the tagine, which I'll show you in a minute when I finish peeling this bit of garlic, which is in a bit of a mucker. But I should have smashed it, that wouldn't it? So a traditional tagine consists of a flattish dish. Now I say it can be painted, they can be earthenware, they can be glazed or whatever. But that's the base, and then you have this top. I'm going to drop this one day. And it's got a little vent in it, but essentially the idea is it keeps the moisture inside there, condenses as such up there and runs back in, and so it just cooks itself in its own juices. So some of them juices are going to obviously come from the ingredients that we put in there. You can add a little bit of water if you want, okay, but generally you shouldn't need to. So I'm just going to get peeling, and cheers, we're on the G&Ts at the moment. Pipsy Gin from Maidstone Distillery, which we popped in town yesterday, so we did stop by for a gin or two. And I said to the wife, oh, she said, oh, I'm going to have my Kipsy Twinkle. And then I said, oh, we can make some Kipsy Twinkles when we get home. But I'm not sure if I've got any Kipsy left. I'll treat you, darling. I'll buy you a bottle. Gets home, and half a bottle left already. So I'm going to start with some celery, okay? Now I'm going to cut my celery up into like matchsticks, if you like. And I'm just going to put this to one side at the moment. I've probably got too much celery here. But we'll see when we come to layer it all up. So obviously we want everything to cook in our little tagine. Oh, I think that's the sign I need to drink, isn't it? Itchy nose. There's, going back to talking about the tagine, where it originated from, there's also suggestions that it was made from the red clay of the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. So with our carrot, we're also going to cut them up into like battens, and we'll put them with the celery for now. So, you know, tagines have sort of been around a little while, well, a long while, but quite where they originated from, no one can be too sure. I think just do this bit. So there is, dating back to sort of 1192-ish, a recipe written by an Arab scholar for how to prepare a tagine, and it was boil the meat and fry with fresh coriander, onions and hot spices, don't actually say what spices are, and a little garlic. Then pick out the fennel hearts and cut in half. Put over the meat, put back on some of the broth on it along with the sheep's tail. This is because you boiled the meat. Remember, I've said before, if you've been paying attention to previous episodes, that quite often the meat was pre-boiled before you roasted it or anything else with it. Put some of the broth on it along with the sheep's tail. Boil until cooked and the broth has been absorbed. Remove, i.e. remove from the heat, and serve it. So that was a very old recipe that used a tagine. I think actually I've got enough carrot there. So we'll put that to one side. Now, I'm now just going to effectively mince up my garlic and onions and put that in a bowl. Like I say, the ginger and garlic are for marinating the potatoes. Okay. Still got to slice my onions. I'm trying to do it in order of how we're going to prepare it in there. The onions slices are going to go into the tagine first. Okay. We also need to slice up some lemons, and you're going to need some olives. So, I'll save some info to bore you with later. Next, I'm going to take a lemon and we're going to make some fairly thick slices of lemon. Okay. And we're going to put that to one side. So I've got, actually I've got that lemon in there, I might have used that as well. And then we're going to make some thick circles of onion. You can see there how thick I'm making them. And we're just going to put them to one side. Should have got a bigger plate. And now all that's left is to get our potatoes peeled. Now you probably only want 2 potatoes. I'll see how many slices I get out of this. Peel them and then again slice them quite thick, about 1/2 inch thick. Don't want them too thin because you don't want them going all mushy. On the other hand, we don't want them too thin, they don't cook. Okay. So like I say, want some olive oil, some turmeric, some saffron, some fresh ground salt and pepper, and then we're almost there. The gin's going down rather nicely. I was drinking Coronation cocktails yesterday. Don't get me started on Coronation. I'm not anti-royalist. Just anti-Charles and that. Well, I'm not saying in polite company. But I had to try it. It was a new cocktail, limited edition. Not had it before, and I probably won't be able to have it again. So I had to try it. Bloody nice. So I'll make it do Kipsy. So I'm slicing the potato, like I said, nice and thickly. And I'll put them in this bowl. Unfortunately, I don't have any more glass bowls big enough. And then in goes that garlic and ginger mix. Oop. Use a dirty cloth. Don't want to get this one dirty. Personalised tea towel. Bloody wife hid it away, couldn't find it for ages. And then I got it in the drawer and I couldn't find it again. Right, so I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric, and I'm going to add some freshly ground black pepper, and we're going to add some salt. I'll take some, whoops, that's a bit too much. Oh well, never mind, it's out now. Some saffron. I've got another big pot somewhere, I've got 18. And just going to rub this into there. Pick up all the bits I spent down here. Do you realise how much this stuff is? And then we're going to give it a little bit of olive oil, and then we just want to massage that into potatoes as best you can. There you go, look at that. That looks exciting. So a tagine is basically a slow cooked stew. I've got all the hand doing Jamie Olive, haven't I? Although I'm not doing Jamie, because Jamie would now go picking everything else up with his filthy, dirty, greasy hands, contaminating it. So, we're now ready to assemble our tagine. And I can't do anything until I've got another G&T. So, time to assemble our tagine. So I just added a little bit of oil to the base of it. Okay, and then we take our onion slices and we just arrange them on the bottom. Okay. Tagines can be meat based, as I've made before. They can be veg based. Quite often, sometimes, can be sweet and sour, particularly if you're using something like lamb. You then take a carrot, okay, and I just lay that around in there, and then we will layer celery around as well. That's our sort of base layer of vegetables. Now, another little interesting fact about tagine, the health benefits of the tagine and the fact that the tagine itself can withstand high temperatures and everything have meant that NASA have included a tagine on the list of dishes to be considered for future travellers to like Mars and that. Right, so there's our base layer of vegetables on there. Ooh, and a carrot trying to escape. So now I'm just going to add another little bit of salt and pepper. And then we're going to spoon a little bit more of the original marinade that we reserved on there. And now I'm going to lay my fish on it. Now, if you were using them things, you would put them on next and then put the fish on top of that. Alright, but we're not. So now we're just going to put the fish on top. Except we're not going to add the fish at this stage. We're going to add the potato. And also just tip in the remainder of the marinade from the potatoes. It'd be a shame to waste all that garlic and everything, wouldn't it? And then we take our fish and we lay our fish on top. Now you can see that he's getting quite full in there. Whoops, a bit of fish falling apart. And again, what we're going to do is once we've got all that fish in there, we will scrape out any of the marinade, because again, we don't want to waste a drop, do we? And then all we've got left to put in there is, oh, excuse me, the remainder of the marinade, the lemons, and the olives. And at this point, this is where we're now going to try and add some olives. Now it is getting rather full. Now hopefully, as it cooks, don't you dare scrape, you little fucker. We will add, oh sorry, it will reduce down, hopefully. There's not a lot of liquid in it. My other tagine does tend to have a little bit of liquid in it that you have to then keep your eye on. Slippery little fuckers. Because it can sort of boil over, but this shouldn't do. Famous last bloody words. You would normally use calamari. What is it, calamari? Oh, I don't know, bloody olives. Oh, look, there's some olive snacks later. But we haven't got any. So I'm using that out of a jar. So we're just adding the remainder of that marinade. Because again, we don't want to waste any of this. My wife's already been in to get her G&T earlier and commented it smelled really nice, and we haven't even done any cooking yet. And so now we're just going to lay on these lemons And then, now one of the previous tagines I've made, it's a Rick Stein one, and it uses preserved lemons. Obviously, this isn't. So, we are now going to put that onto a low heat. Put the lid on, and it's now going to sit there, cook away for about an hour and a half. Look at how nice and neat and tidy. You can see the message, haven't you? Now, normally this would often be served with bread to soak up the juice and things. We're not. We'll just have it as it is. Okay. So, see you in about an hour and a half. So here we go. Some hour and a half later, more or less. Oh, stop. It was about 10 minutes ago. The white wine now. So, let's turn that heat off. The only trouble with these tagines, they're really difficult to pick the lid up. So I'm just going to put that over there, because I forgot to clean the stuff off the side. You can see it's bubbling away. There's a liquid that's come out of everything, like I said. So, let's just move some of that lemon to one side. Let's see if we can scoop out from the bottom, so we get a bit of everything. Bit of fish, bit of potato, bit of carrot, bit of celery. Bit of onion, which although the onion don't want to come out. So, like I said, there's a lot of liquid in there now, and all of that has just come from the ingredients mostly. I've got a feeling let's try a bit of fish. Fish is cooked. It's got a bit of a tang to it. I think that's the saffron coming through. A bit of onion, a bit of olive. Not a lot of flavour, as you might expect, I suppose, in the onion. Carrot's still got a bit of bite to it. Just trying to get a bit of potato. Potato's still got a bite to it. Cooked, but still on the hard side. It hasn't gone mushy. Let's have another bit more fish. Getting a bit of heat through, probably from the ginger. Very different from the tagine I've cooked before. You're getting a sort of bit of tang of lemon. It's not quite the same as with using the old preserved lemons. But who cares? Still tastes bloody good. So there you go. There is your fish tagine.